U equals U, the concept itself, it's been around since, 2008 for heterosexual couples. And by 2016, included gay men who are living with HIV. So the concept basically explains that if you have an undetectable viral load, okay, that is less than 50 copies of HIV per ml of blood, then when you have sex, you can't transmit it to your partner. And for people who can give birth, they have a less than 1% chance of passing it on to their child. So it's quite transformative because, a big source of stigma regarding people living with HIV is that you will get HIV from them. You can't have families and so on. And that's totally untrue nowadays because of advancements in medication. So the reason I started it was because my partner is living with HIV. He's openly living, but he's from Germany. So that comes with its own complications. And I guess I started it out of my love for him because I had to keep explaining to people that I'm safe. I would get that feedback a lot that, should you be with him? You should keep yourself safe. Then I'm like, we are safe because he is taking his medication. So I thought that, this is something not a lot of people know. And when I was a student, I thought, oh, I don't have any professional attachments. I'm not working in a particular place. I'm studying. So I decided to start the initiative to educate people. Yeah, and I started it, I think, in November 2019. So 11 months into my relationship. Okay, so I studied global studies. And I specialized in population and migration in NUS. So right now I'm working as a research assistant in a slightly different field. It's like urban studies right now. So in my free time, I'm doing the UequalsU account with Nurafika. Yeah.
Very interesting. And for Nurafika, what does she do?
She's studying engineering in a polytechnic. She joined me about 3 months after I started UequalsU. She faced discrimination entering the polytechnic. So she declared that I don't understand why, but they asked whether she has HIV. Literally, they asked that question, do you have?
Oh, yeah. In poly, they asked kids whether they have HIV.
Yeah, they already declared. And actually, a lot of schools and workplaces do this, which I don't really understand. I think a more appropriate question would be, do you have anything you would like to tell us and how can we support you? That seems way better than, point blank asking, do you have HIV? Yeah.
Right,
anyway, so when she declared, which she thought she should have done, and then, they summoned her in a way for questioning. She couldn't participate in her orientation activities. And then during that questioning, I think one of the people from the school side asked her quite inappropriate questions, like, can you pass HIV to your classmates while sharing food? And just being very uninformed and rude. So because of her experience, Nurafika wanted to speak out, but she didn't know how to do it. And she just approached the platform, the UequalsU platform. And then she shared her story using her real name. So she's the only woman publicly out living with HIV in Singapore.
Love inspired you and discrimination inspired her. So that's quite an interesting dynamic that you guys have. I think, what about you? Okay, did you feel discriminated as well for being, you mentioned it briefly, but did you feel that people started treating you differently?
I mean, I definitely had some friendships and family relations fall apart because I remember correcting a friend who's part of the LGBTIQ community. He's gay, but he made a comment about I should get away, or so I should need to take care of myself. And I tried educating him, and I think he just didn't like being corrected. So we haven't really been in touch since then. And with family members, they had a really big problem with Marcel being queer. So he likes anyone of any gender. Yeah. So they have a big problem with that. And then, but I think I don't, what I face, this kind of discrimination or shade being thrown at me is nothing compared to someone who's living with HIV. So I've been able to just look past it and say whatever. Right. So it's very different from, let's say, someone who's living with HIV. They face more active discrimination, I feel, and stigma. Whereas for me, people kind of shut down their comments when I tell them, no, I'm not going to take it. your concern is unnecessary.
And it should be. It should be unnecessary. Like I think, what two people are doing with their lives, and it's interesting that you mentioned that that friend of yours is a gay person. Like I feel that people with HIV are that one very category of people that get discriminated by almost everyone. Regardless of whether you are part of a marginalized community yourself. It just seems that when it comes to this particular topic of HIV, it just seems that people tend to view that as the worst of the worst. I'm sorry for using those words.
There's a lot of fear. From what I've heard people tell me about people living with HIV, is that there seems to be a lot of fear that you can get HIV from them, which is like, it has to occur under very specific circumstances,
Right.
especially if they're undetectable. Like, what is your real fear? Like, what will really happen? There's this idea of conflating hypothetical risks of infection with actual. So, and I did look back when I was researching on my own. I did find advertisements in Our Home magazine. It's not around anymore, but back then it was a HDB publication. And when they talked about HIV, back then was AIDS, right? In the 80s.
Yeah.
They'd be like, it'll be your fault if you bring it home. So they cast such a moral judgment on people living with HIV getting HIV, to the point that it's carried on until now. Because I remember in sex education, it's a lifelong thing. You live with it of your life. A cure is not in sight. Vaccine, I think they're going through trials, but a cure is not in sight. And for many people, it's terrifying for them. But at the same time, the way that they go about expressing this fear, I feel, is quite irrational and also very harmful, because it deters people from getting tested. It makes life very difficult for people living with HIV. So I think part of why I started the initiative, and also Narifika, why she wants to do this, is so that we can educate people and just kind of take away this like air of fear and judgment surrounding the topic of HIV.
There are numerous other diseases out there that perhaps share the same characteristics. Perhaps share the same characteristics. Why is HIV so like AIDS back then stereotype? Is it pop culture? Like, did that have to do with anything, or is it media portrayal?
Yeah, definitely media portrayal is one thing, because media has not talked about UequalsU until recently. Very recently, I would say. So back then, people don't understand what is it like living with HIV, the medication. And yeah, pop culture contributes to that, because a lot of cinema, you see people die from AIDS.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lack of, I mean, when I was talking to my parents, I had to explain to them what is the difference between HIV and AIDS. It's a very big difference. So they didn't know that. And I think it's just the lack of media around us. Also in school, it's not very clear. Like in school, when I was doing sex ed, of course, it's not good, but they never talk about what happens when you get diagnosed with an STI. What happens if you get diagnosed with HIV? What kind of medication is out there. There was medication out there, but we don't talk about it. So of course, people, unless they actively educate themselves, they're not going to get the information. And how many people we know will actively educate themselves? They'll just be like, they hear from a friend or something. Yeah, word of mouth. Will they actually like one day go into research on HIV medication?
Right.
Yeah, and it's a complex illness. It's a complex condition. So some people may not really understand it at first. It takes time. So you have to invest some time and effort.
Right, which is what
in the case of Singapore, in the case of Singapore, we have a medical system. We have access. We are very fortunate in that way to have access to these medication, as opposed to another country that is resource scarce. So yeah.
The thing is that, like, with so many prolific, like I could probably think of 5 very, very famous musicians and a couple of other actors, so on and so forth, who have had HIV. And despite like so much awareness about it, that could have come from them. Of course, we are talking about a completely different era. Like this was like 80s and 90s, right? But
Yeah, they passed
despite
away, a lot of them.
yeah,
Yeah.
despite the opportunity for awareness to be built, they always show that the person at the end of the day dies, or the person at the end of the day, becomes frail and weak. I cannot remember which movie I saw. I don't want to say that also,
Tom
but
Hanks, I think.
yeah,
I think Tom
there was. There was one movie where, like, I think gradually he doesn't grow old in terms of age, but he grows old in terms of like his looks and stuff like that. And I was like, how, what, like, why, like that doesn't make sense.
I understand like why people do movies about AIDS and HIV. So one comes to mind is like Philadelphia, or like Dallas Buyers Club, I think.
Yeah, Dallas Buyers Club. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the thing is, it makes sense for the period they were filming in, the 80s, late 80s. It totally makes sense that people passed away. Yeah, but the problem is that when you do it now in contemporary times, people still have that image.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's still stuck in them, which I understand why it's stuck in them. But I guess I'm also waiting for newer films that explore what it means to live with HIV nowadays, with a country
Right. Yeah,
that has.
I would love to see something like that.
Yeah. So, but it takes time, because even now, even in America, you only see that, for example, one example is like transgender actors, actual people who are transgender playing those roles, rather than someone who is cisgender playing those roles.
Right.
So I think it will be a while before we see that. Although nowadays there are very like famous celebrities. The first name that comes to my head is like Jonathan Fernandez, I think.
Yep.
He's living with HIV, queer, non-binary person. Yep. So I think people are emerging. Recently, Billy Potter came out as living with HIV. Right. He's been doing amazing work. But I think it takes time to do these things. And for Singapore's case, only 5 people are actively, like, they've come out and say they live with HIV. Okay. Until we change structures that perpetuate discrimination and HIV stigma, I don't foresee more people coming out yet. And it's also understandable, because, they have to think about their lives, their personal lives, families, workplaces, all these things.
How do people deal with stuff like that? Like Nur Rafika, for example, how serious is it, and why should we be paying attention?
Yeah, I think you have to have some empathy and humanity to treat them as equals, which they are. Seriously. With Nurfika, she has told me that she's developed coping mechanisms against because it's a very sad thing, but she's used to people, when they found out about her status, that they leave, they don't want to be friends with her, or they slowly like exclude her, like turn down stuff, and just pushing her away. It's very sad, and I think I do commend her, because she really tries to go on with life. Like right now, she doesn't do interviews now, because she wants to concentrate on her studies. She wants to get her diploma, and just going on with life and surviving, I think is amazing in itself. Of course, there are people who make uneducated opinions and stuff, and it hurts, definitely. She tells me about it, and it can be very upsetting, and it gives her stress, and it just makes her not focus on stuff like her work, because it's traumatizing. Right. But she really tries her best to go on with life and just take it one day at a time. And I know she's talking to other people living with HIV to find like comfort and support. Sometimes she also talks to Marcel about stuff. And yeah, I think having multiple sources of support helps, but it nevertheless is very difficult. I don't see why people should give her a hard time. And it doesn't matter how someone gets HIV, they shouldn't be having a hard time from people who don't know about them, Yeah. Right. And it's just, I think we have an obsession in Singapore that we ask why people, how they get it. And then based on that, we decide how to treat them. So apparently if it was passed, like I heard a woman tell me, if someone got it from birth, so they've been living with it all their lives, then they have more sympathy or like married women whose husbands have HIV because they had extramarital affairs. They should have more sympathy.
Right.
So everyone else doesn't get sympathy. But I think it's I think it's terrible because it established a hierarchy of deservingness.
Right.
And
Yeah.
why should people fight for compassion, right? And I don't know anyone who said like, oh, I specifically wanted to get HIV. So like no one says that. It's not a thing, and it's yeah. I think especially the LGBT community, gay men in particular, they face particular stigma from their sexuality, like being looked down upon, 377A, and also yeah, because it's sex related and that's taboo, you know. So it doesn't make sense to have a hierarchy, and we should also stop asking how people get HIV.
Yep.
Yeah, I think only if you're like a partner and it matters to you for whatever reason. But otherwise, as a friend, as a family member, why do we need to ask? Yeah, it's more important that we just support them. Like, do you need? We can ask them out. Like, how can I support you? Have you started treatment? Do you need any support? Those kind of things, like being supportive. It is a life-changing event. So I think people living with HIV don't need this extra judgment and stress.
You mentioned a very interesting word, uneducated opinions.
Yeah.
How much is that of a hurdle for the U=U initiative, considering your scientific facts and personal stories? How much is uneducated opinions a hurdle for your?
Like when I say uneducated opinions, even those who have master's degree and PhD may not believe U equals U.
Right.
Yeah. So uneducated, I should reframe it as unwillingness to learn. The unwillingness to believe, because I've spoken to my mom who's from Malaysia. She's only had more secondary education, and even she can grasp the main tenets of the U=U movement. So it's not a matter of like how far you are, it's your willingness to engage science and to believe it, you know. It's definitely a hurdle because with the absence of public health campaigns, especially in Singapore, people only believe it if it's the government's word. Sometimes some people are like that. And, I
That's
don't
true.
see, if you don't see like MOH endorsing U=U, like, is this real? You're citing me all
Right.
these foreign sources. Does this apply to
Right.
us? And like, I
Right.
have to cite foreign sources because there's no page on MOH website that talks about U=U. So that's something I get. I get it. I get some like feedback about, but because we have such a fascination with the Western world and colonization, the sources are from like America and Europe, so people are more believing.
Right.
As opposed if I gave them an example from a global South country.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's also a hierarchy which is irritating, but I just try to keep going and try to give as many sources as possible. If people still refuse to learn, I can't really do much. I just hope that I scraped, like I took a chip in their wall, and hopefully, like, the information slowly sinks in. With my dad, for example, I just constantly engage him and remind him. I even took a HIV test to show, oh yeah, I'm negative, and that helped him believe and feel very confident.
Very interesting also that you mentioned like people only believe things when it is the a government body that is mentioning it,
Yeah.
a government body that is creating the initiative or things like that.
Top
That
down.
is so true.
Top down.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is so true because like I mean you've known me for a while. Even I had to engage with government bodies so that like certain initiatives could be legitimized to a certain extent. But you see, those initiatives very sadly, like I don't know why HIV was never a topic I got a chance to work on. The lack of education, it does seem to be an issue. Like, perhaps if not for your, if not for U=U, and if not for the work that you all were putting out, to be very, very honest, like blatantly honest, like maybe I would not have even known certain differences, or known that there are these specific criteria, so on and so forth. Like I wouldn't have
Yeah.
known that much. I don't understand why there is very little government intervention in this area. I mean, they
Well,
love,
they're intervening in the terms of funding for HIV
right.
testing and all these
Mm.
things. But you're right, in the awareness campaign, there seems to be this like deficit existing. I don't know if like they don't have time, or like actually they do have the resources to invest, but maybe they have themselves
Of course,
underestimated the
Mm.
transformative concept that is equals you, or like the transformative impact it has on public attitudes. Another reason I'm speculating is also because the gay men are also men who have sex with men are disproportionately affected
Yeah,
by
yeah,
HIV. You know
right,
how Singapore keeps mum about the LGBTIQ community?
right.
That could also be another reason why. Because HIV has a reputation for being like a gay disease. Totally not
Yeah,
true. You know,
yeah.
heterosexual
Yeah, I was
people get
actually,
it.
that was one of the burning questions that I really, really like wanted to put it out there to you. Like, is HIV a gay disease?
Oh, well, of course not. So many. And I hate it when people say it's a gay disease, because you have totally erased non-males. Like you've erased women, you've
Right.
erased non-binary people, you've erased quite a lot of people from the discussion when you say it's a gay disease, and it's terrible. Because what about them? I think, why are you not seeing them and their unique struggles? Because every community has a different struggle. When they have HIV, they're disproportionately affected. It's not all the same. What about sex workers? What about them? They're
Right, right,
people.
right, right.
They
Very
need
interesting
healthcare.
point. Right.
Yeah, so I think in Singapore, actually, the transmission rates between heterosexual men and men who have sex with men, they are roughly the same. Actually,
Mm.
what about, so like you see, you can never call it gay. It's totally inaccurate to call it a gay disease or anything. I think it's just people who already dislike the LGBTIQ community want to pile on
Right,
their judgment and their hatred, and it's
right.
terrible.
Any idea how did this even like start off? Like how did it like just became
Yeah.
this gay disease thing? Any idea how
Well,
did that?
Marcel and I had a conversation about this. Like,
Yep.
he was telling me that actually HIV originated from the African continent,
Right.
and it is estimated that because there's very specific ways it's transmitted bodily fluids that takes a way longer time than like COVID-19.
Right.
So actually by the 50s, HIV was already spreading within the African continent, and the only time they really noticed it was actually in the West. The West has a spotlight on it, and they noticed that gay men, or like queer men, were dying from AIDS, basically because they had untreated HIV. So they were having AIDS, and actually the Reagan administration, they turned their backs on the gay community. They're like, you all deserve this because moralistic judgment. You all deserve this. We won't help you. It was only when heterosexual people started presenting AIDS that they're like, oh, okay, we must intervene and bring attention to it. So this is where it gets its reputation from in the 80s, when there were outbreaks within the gay male community. The reason why also is a concentrated community, so it's easier to detect something versus a heterosexual population, which is much larger. And also it is easier to transmit HIV through anal sex, because the tissue is different, like from the vagina and so on. So it's easier to rupture, and then the virus can enter the bloodstream and so on. So there's that aspect, but also because in the 80s, media was no social media, so everyone was focused on the West, and then they look at Western media. But it's totally not the case, because if you look at transmission patterns in Africa, in the continent, you see that women are disproportionately affected in like Africa and even in Asia as well. The women are the ones who are presenting with like higher incidence. So it really depends which country you go to and the culture.
Right.
And then the patterns of HIV are not all the same. But it's
Right.
really because it erupted in the West within the gay queer male community. That's why they made this link to
Right.
gay men and so on.
Right.
But it's really far from it. It's what was in like popular media imagination. Yeah, I'm not a communications major, so I don't have the right words. But it comes from that, and it's been the West is very prominent, right? So it transmits this like image. Actually, it's not the case for a lot of countries. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and it doesn't help that, like, the prolific musicians or celebrities that we were talking about earlier, most of them died with, of course, prevailing conditions that they already had while being a person living with HIV.
They have more attention. They have more attention. I mean, because they were from the West. They were superstars, and they were amazing. Yeah. They were very talented. But at the same time, while they had media attention, what about the women, the children, and so on, the men as well, who were dying in the global South? They kind of escape what you think of HIV.
I guess the evil of the not all media per se, but the evil of certain media angles was that it goes both ways. That on one hand they got a lot of attention. On the other hand, a lot of these men were also gay men.
These people who passed away, they did amazing work to try and raise money and try to get research, and that's we can't diminish the value of their contribution. But yes, at the same time, when you think, even my dad, when you ask him about HIV, initially all he thinks is Freddie Mercury, because he loved Freddie's music. He loved Freddie Mercury, and it was such a loss. And because he was so prominent, it kind of takes attention away from those. They become like faceless, the faceless body in the global. Yeah, so I mean that's the power of media. It was really dominated by the West during the 80s, 90s, and even 2000s.
How much research goes into that? I remember seeing one of your posts where I think it was on your Instagram stories where you just put it out to everyone that hey guys, look, like our work takes time, so please be patient with us while we put out our content, do our research.
How
much work goes into it?
Because Pika is not as comfortable with research, and she also needs her course is hard, it's engineering. She needs time for it. So mostly it's me who researches, and I run it with her, like what I find and everything. So for me personally, I can say it takes days. It takes days because I don't just find one source that says something. I have to find multiple sources that say it, and then I have to pick which one is like the most suitable source. And then another added layer is that I try to look at academic articles, and academic articles can take out like 20 pages around there. So I try, and I have to like wrap my head around this and this. So like sometimes I call myself, dear, I don't understand this. What does it mean? And then he tries to explain it to me, and then it takes time. And as I learn some more, I realized that, I've been using the wrong language. It's stigmatizing. Then I totally removed the post from before, and I say, we're removing it because it's not good enough. So it's this constant process of editing, and because I myself, I'm honestly a perfectionist. It takes me a while to generate stuff. So for example, I'm working on multiple stuff right now, ideas. So whenever the mood strikes me, I go back to it. One of it is about tattoos and piercings, and it's not a hard topic. But I spent like days. I'm not even done yet. I've spent days trying to find the right sources, trying to frame the right angles. Have I discussed it appropriately? And so it's this process, and also not trusting myself. So it takes days to get something out. Yeah, and I sit on it before I post so that I know it's correct. Proper.
I probably should practice that lah. I probably should practice something like that.
It's just part of the process. It takes time, and now I'm working. So now I'm not only working, I'm also learning German because I plan to move to Germany to be my field. So like past 5 months I've been actually studying for my German language exam, and that took a lot of time away from doing UequalsU stuff. on top of work.
Right.
So it's
Yeah,
a balancing act.
yeah. I think what most people see like separate from separating the from the conversation of just you equals you as an initiative, like, and bringing in a more like overall activist perspective. What a lot of people don't realize is how much work a person dedicates to run an initiative like yours, where you don't just have either scientific facts or personal stories. You have both that are going out there. That is, I deal with a lot of personal stories, and that is difficult. But then when you couple that with needing to have all this research and like, yeah, it's a whole different level altogether. And like for y'all to be having your own lives and stuff like that, has there been tough times? Have there been like times like, you know, where
yeah, definitely. Like I share about it now. And when I was writing my thesis, I have social anxiety, so I have a very hard time, especially because of the pandemic. When we had to do CB, we had to stay at home. I lost my momentum to go outside, and it was already hard enough. I couldn't even, when CB ended, I took months just to be able to take a bus or public transport. Like, it was really severe, and I was still producing UequalsU stuff, and I was separated from my partner for 1 year, and it was extremely like, it was terrible, but also I don't know how to like go back, how to heal myself. So that's why the first half of this year I just stopped. I just decided that I have to take care of myself. I have to take care of my emotions, my anxiety. So that, I think, was the continuation from last year to early this year was the hardest period for me personally. Yeah. For Nurifika, she was telling me after her Straits Times interview, that was a particularly difficult time for her.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. We've posted about it. So basically, yeah, it was very difficult because the way the interview, she's very uncomfortable with video interviews. Example, something like this, she really does not like to do this. It's very hard. And it's also very traumatizing for her to speak at the same time. So and because of that bad experience, she's like, no, I'm not going to do any interviews in the near future, which is totally understandable. As well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So that has been the difficult time. I even turned down some interviews earlier this year because I think I just didn't want to. I wasn't in a great place. So when you're not in a great place, how can you speak effectively? Like from my experience, I can't speak very effectively. I'm still very tired, but I'm not as tired as beginning of the year. Yeah. Right now I'm recovering from my German language exam, which has taken up a lot of my time.
German is not an easy language by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, and I have to get ready because I'm gonna move to Germany to be my fiance. So I have to move to Germany because Singapore won't let him in. So different. Yeah. So that in itself is also stressful. That's another element of stress.
Why they don't want to let him in? Is it purely condition or COVID or like amalgamation of everything?
Like he can visit as a tourist, but he can't live here long term as a person living with HIV. I've actually emailed my MP about this and asked them, ask my MP, why can you raise this in Parliament and all that? And there's been very little feedback. I mean, last year in September, they replied me that they're bringing it up. And now it's already, May? Nothing. So I've also sent follow-up emails, nothing came back. So at this point, I have to make a decision about my life. And for me, it is to live with my fiance because I notice my mental health is way better when we're together.
Right.
It also fuels my ability to tackle my anxiety, tackle my challenges in life, tackle UequalsU. Yeah, so I just made the decision that I have to go overseas until I think only maybe 10 years down the road he could come over. Yeah, but anyway, he's a prohibited immigrant, so he's banned from working here.
Right.
And if you look on the website, they say that spouses of Singaporean citizens can stay longer than 90 days. They don't tell me anything else, like can I afford his medication? How much will it cost? Is it at least subsidized through me? It's what happens? Can he get a job? Can he get PR? What if we have kids?
Right.
Then if he's not PR, then how? So we decided for ourselves that no choice. Singapore's not giving answers. I have to go to Germany. I don't really want to, but I want to be together. He loves Singapore. Like he knows everything that's wrong with the country. He reads out fairly well. He's not this white man who's fantasizing. He knows the problems.
Right.
I complain a lot, so he knows. And then, but he still wants to be part of the society and try and contribute wherever he can. But he can't. That's a sad thing. So I just have to go lah. Yeah.
That's really weird. I just don't get that aspect of things. Like, why is a medical condition being used as
something about risk of infection or risk of transmission is still significant. So actually it's only until 2015 that they lifted the ban on tourists living with HIV coming to Singapore. That's really late. And when they explain their rationale, it's negligible if they're tourists. But if they live long term, apparently I don't know what they're thinking. Masal not going to take his medication or something.
Right. And why would he do that? It's just illogical.
It's so hypothetical risks, actual risks. You have to distinguish. Right. So I don't know. I think they just sometimes I feel now as I read more that as a country we have been forced into productivity, equality of your labor, and there seems to be an association that someone living with HIV cannot be as productive. We kind of ignore their humanity. Even those who are Singaporeans or permanent residents living here with HIV, I think there's a tendency to just jump the gun and judge them, which is very silly lah. And now that it comes to my mind, the point that Masal's medication or HIV medication isn't cheap. So I think also the government don't want to subsidize him. So it was only in 2008 that people living with HIV could be subsidized. Before then, they actually had to pay the full amount, just thousands of dollars.
Right. Yeah,
over $1,000. Or they will import it from overseas, from Thailand, the generic version. Or some of them just really they couldn't stand the stress and they passed away. They just stopped taking that medication. They can't afford it. And it's such a tragedy, really. So I think also maybe the government doesn't want to subsidize my fiance. And faced with that, his medication is it's a necessity for us.
Right.
And plus he gets it for free in Germany, then the choice for me to move overseas makes sense. And he feels bad about this. He has apologized to me, I'm sorry I have HIV and I'm sorry you have to move. And I say, don't apologize because it's not your fault. I don't think they should discriminate against you, literally. And how could you have known you'd be wanting to move to a country like Singapore and not stay in Europe? So many things. There are struggles with this. People have asked me why do you bother with this long distance relationship with him having HIV?
Well, it's none of their business.
Yeah, he's a wonderful person in the first place. You think so easy to find good people that you want to spend your life with? No, it takes a lot of trying and everything. And I think we should examine structures and not blame someone and say it's their fault.
Right.
It's not a healthy thing to do.
At the end of the day, there's a lot of emotions involved. There's a lot of work involved. There's a lot of thinking involved. There's a lot of feeling involved. There's so many things all together. How do you guys help yourselves not have any serious mental health issues?
Oh, I don't know. That one we're still figuring out. Hafika, I think Hafika, she said no more interviews, and I totally supported her. No more. So a comment by the reporter that really upset her is you need to better control your emotions, and that's terrible. And actually the person who introduced her to the reporter repeated the reporter's sentiments that you should have controlled your emotions. So I think it's just there was no resolution, and the experience just left her very fragile and angry, understandably. So for her, she just had to like stop doing interviews, and I told her, "You've done so much in the past year. Please don't worry about it." For myself, I just stepped away and looked inwards, try and focus on my mental health,
Right.
because I have other stuff going on, and I had to address it. I know that people say activism, you need to have like a community to help heal and regenerate.
Yep.
I have yet to find that for myself.
Right. Yeah.
I
Same.
haven't
Actually.
found that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so something you can relate to. It's just you feel
Mm.
very
It
uh
gets. It gets.
stuck.
I would say it gets lonely because sometimes it is not just the emotional support, right? It is about like having people contribute in a productive way also. Um, uh, there I have perhaps experience certain
Mm.
times where in the our activism scene sometimes like certain things that are said or certain things that are put out may not exactly be the most productive way of going about it. We should be trying to work with each other and like you know at the end of the day, like it is such a small country. The activism scene it is
Yeah.
tiny. This few people are trying to make a big difference in a country that has historically been very trying to use the right words again. Very
Repressive. Just say
very
repressive. You can
yeah.
say it.
Uh, very narrow with
Yeah.
the way they think. Yeah, of course, like I mean, keep in mind that I'm not just speaking only about the government. I'm speaking
Yeah.
also about like people who depend on the government, people who don't try to see whatever that you, Nurafika, and your partner have to do and things like that. All comes from research, and research. The resources are out there. Maybe even a simple Google search like how does a person get HIV? As simple as that. Like it could
Yeah.
do a world of difference, right? To help a person understand that, oh no, this is not the only way a person gets HIV. But unfortunately, sometimes it is not just like the government, it's also sometimes people who need a bit more time, who need a bit more pushing, who need a bit more encouragement to
Yeah,
actually
yeah. I can't
sit down and listen.
I
You know?
yeah, yeah. It's like the trouble with call outs are justifiable usually, but I also find sometimes when you call someone out, they just retreat and then you can never get them
Mm,
back.
right,
So
right, right.
it's a balance lah. It's really like trying. When I call out people, I more call out institutions.
Mm,
Then when it comes to people themselves, I try to engage them, and I try to have a bond, try to create something.
right,
And then sometimes I'm just too damn tired to do that, and then I give up, And
right,
that's the thing where with activism, how do we like change bonds? Because I don't think someone is like unsavable. Like, I've met
right.
people who have
Of course,
changed,
right,
and yeah, I've met people who can change, and like it takes time, So how do you engage them continuously, and how do you have the energy to do that? Is something that is trial
right,
and error.
right,
Yeah. So it's I also have a tough time with this. What you just said.
right.
How do we gauge our fellow activists?
Mm.
And
And
that's why
also
I try
the
to be
people
kind.
so you see like the space that I mostly operate in is
Mm.
perhaps the sex workers, migrant workers, marginalized communities, right?
Yeah,
Imagine
yeah,
yours. Imagine the kind of rubbish is in your inbox. Like
yeah.
I just dread to one day maybe one day I just want to not dread lah. I'll actually be very interested to see what kind of nonsense people send you sometimes.
So like it's very weird lah. How come? So like thankfully not too much.
Right, right.
Frankly, not. Sometimes I have to hide comments. The most stupid one I find is when people claim HIV can be cured by herbal treatments. And they comment, they
Yes,
comment in their post.
yes,
And
yeah,
it makes me so angry because why are you spreading misinformation? And like, I know people want to hope that herbal treatments make a difference because it's more
right.
accessible and HIV medication at times is cheaper. So like, I wish it were the case, but don't put that there because you're giving someone like false hope.
Right,
Yeah, so
right.
that kind of thing like makes me annoyed. Misinformation is quite annoying. Sometimes you get people who just say, "Oh, I don't believe this." I'm like, "Okay, done, bye." Then you don't believe. I don't have to entertain you. You have to learn on your own. Another case is like because Nurfika and me are women, then there's an added dimension of sexism that I
Correct,
met.
yeah,
Like some
yeah.
people, they write in and asking for our photos, so like be friends, and it's so weird. And
What?
it's like then I tell myself, it's like they know you're in a relationship, right? And I'm like, yeah, but apparently they want my number,
Ah,
want my photos. Yeah, it's very silly lah. But I think it's the
ah.
added dimension of
You know,
that's the added
yeah,
dimension of huh?
yeah. Sorry, you were gonna say the added dimension of.
Yeah, that's the sexism lah. Like
Right.
who do you think you are? Excuse me. It's like meant for platform to educate, and here you're concerned about getting my photo. Go away.
Oh my god. I
Yeah,
feel like my goatee just turned white listening to that from the stress I got. Like
yeah.
oh my god, what? I mean,
Mm.
yeah, I guess that is another thing as well. Like being two women, of course this should not matter in any way or sense. I think you and me we have spoken about like a certain situation that took place and how I understood it as a man and how you understood it as a woman. Remember, this was quite some time ago, lah. But we
Oh
did
yeah,
speak
then
about
I sent you the
yeah,
notes on gender.
yeah,
Yeah, I did a gender studies module and we talked
right,
about it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so like does
Yeah.
like does it make things even more difficult? Of course, you've already mentioned one instance like how it makes things difficult.
I think for Norifika, firstly, she's a Malay Muslim woman. So just by her saying talking about HIV, usually associated with like sex and promiscuity,
Hmm,
like it's hard. It's extra stigma for her, especially
right.
in the Malay Muslim community where sex is
Hmm,
still you don't talk about
yeah,
it. It's
yeah.
considered like a dirty topic. So that's
Hmm,
something she faces. Wherever she talks about her HIV, people like look at her gender, they look at her religion, they look at her ethnicity. So it's hard, right? It's hard for her, especially within her own community. She can
hmm,
face stigma. So that she has told me about. She's also worried whether she can find a partner who
right,
understand, is
right.
willing to learn, and so on.
Hmm,
For me, I mean, I'm with a white dude, so it's very different. The constraints are very different.
right,
For me as a
right.
female, I think people still they're very shook when I talk about his HIV. Well, we're very open about it. People literally ask me like, "Huh, you have unprotected sex?" And they're like, "Aren't you scared of like getting HIV?" And no, he's undetectable. And furthermore, when it comes to birth control, there are way more effective ones than condoms.
Right.
Truthfully,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, they're more reliable. Yeah,
Right.
so so they are just like, so they just like keep interrogating like this and that, like how can you discuss sex and
Like many of us with social media is such murky waters, right? And we kind of fall in the trap of like die wanting thousands and thousands and thousands of followers, hundreds and thousands of engagements,
yeah, the
things like that.
like effect.
Yeah. And you see, on one hand, I get the idea that that means you are reaching to a wider audience. You can educate like more people. Okay, I get that, but that then there is also this other aspect of legitimacy that okay, if you have a set number of followers, maybe above like 10K followers, that means what you are doing is legit. Like this part
Oh
I
yeah,
feel
yeah,
affects a
yeah,
lot of initiatives out
yeah.
there.
Yeah, because then they stop when they don't reach a certain number. So like what I tried to do for myself, because I knew I was going to fall into this trap. Like, what if I don't reach that number? Does that
We
mean all
all
my
have,
efforts are
yeah, we all
useless?
have.
Yeah. So I talked to myself. Okay, this is a very niche topic. HIV is a niche topic. It hasn't really entered our thoughts as much. And then I told myself, okay, I will settle for just 200 followers. And then like I hope it'll be more. And I by setting such a low point, like a low bar, when I surpassed it, I was amazed. So
Nice,
I
nice.
think I've been
That's
trying to
pretty
do that.
practical.
Yeah, and I've talked to friends like, why do you follow and what happens when you tell other people? And my friends honestly told me that they follow it because they want to support me, but they've
Right.
shown it to other people who looked at my posts, but maybe never liked it, but they don't need to follow because they already learn U equals U. And I can't measure that kind of impact, and I shouldn't try because
Right.
like how would I know like who's looking at the post and learning? So numbers are just one thing. It's just the tip. People are seeing the content. I don't know who they are, but I hope they take away the right stuff from it. Yeah, so it's something that if I just focus on a number, I'm taking away a lot. Like I'm taking a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
away
yeah.
from
Exactly, exactly.
what's happening.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
what's happening. So like,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, because
same for you.
because like there's a lot of I think like for example the personal stories aspect that you have there is sometimes like finding people to even talk can be an issue already, and
Of
then
course. Yeah.
you see like that is where things like the experience that Nurafika had where she was unfortunately uh, um, made to do something that she was not comfortable with doing. And all these things take time. We need to build relationships, right? And if see you guys where you all have the signs, you all have the personal stories, and if you all start posting every single day, like maybe 5 times a day, every single day, definitely like the impact is not going to be the same already versus a well researched post that clearly communicates and clearly has all the facts or the
Yeah.
proper
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I have to also give myself like the slack that I need to produce quality.
Mm,
And yeah, I actually did at some point. I was like, I think at my lower points, I was like, oh, I haven't posted in like so and so many days. I actually should post more. I'm not I'm falling out of the algorithm or like yeah. So all these things are yeah, it weighs on the mind because you want to deliver. I think this whole culture of being productive, meeting certain goals, keep pushing ourselves, but it's not sustainable a lot of
mm.
the time, and it's very bad for the brain,
Right,
like
right,
constantly being stressed and like angry at yourself. And yeah,
right. Yeah,
it's a
that's very true.
process.
Because even personally as well, like as a
Mm,
photographer, I have been telling a lot of my friends who are photographers as well
yeah,
that I am just so lazy nowadays to even upload a goddamn picture. The recent photo that I uploaded of that migrant worker dude Mamun,
yeah,
um, I just uploaded that one portrait and I felt that I am doing a disservice to like them if I'm going to put out the work that I created for them and get all the likes or whatever from it and expect like have this audience who expect me to put out more of this stuff like this habitual thing that grows I feel it's something that can be counterproductive also because when I look at the stuff that you all put out, I would I would think that someone is going to read the stuff and then they are going to go and Google stuff and try to. Of course, this is like me maybe expecting a bit too much,
I
but
hope.
yeah, but perhaps
Yeah,
like maybe try to understand certain things a little deeper. It's not so much about spoon feeding you with all the information so that you don't need to put in any effort on your own of your own because
yeah,
yeah, like how does that help, right? Yeah,
yeah, Yeah.
I kind of feel that like when I see it like your posts or the posts from other initiatives who are really trying to put good stuff out there, it just feels that like people just expect you all to be posting more regularly and
Yeah,
try
yeah,
to
yeah.
which
I
is
had a comment. Yeah, it's
yeah, I saw that.
yeah, like they don't know they are creating, like they also don't create. So like, hello. Actually, one of
Yeah,
Fika's friends like, oh, y'all haven't posted in a while. She was like, yeah, we're on a break. She was like very smartly told them, no, of course we're not posting, we're on a break. So it's like, yeah, I'm doing the research by myself right now, or like for a big part of the time. So it's exhausting lah.
right,
And yeah, if I don't feel that I'm being authentic enough, I won't post.
right,
Yeah.
right.
What you said, like the feeling of I'm doing a disservice if I rush something out. It is, yeah, you have to honor the process. And sometimes it's just long. I just
Right,
can't produce as
right.
much as someone else. But also, I know other pages may have more than one person working
Yeah,
on
yeah,
it.
exactly. Some
So
of them
like
have an entire
different.
office working on
Yeah.
research, and they have an entire other office working on the design of the post, and you know,
Yeah.
like they have the manpower. But unfortunately, in Singapore, we are so you know, we activism over here is so young, and like reaching out to find partners or to find like collaborators and things like that can be quite a task.
Yeah. And I also have, unfortunately, because I'm not from a rich family, not even well off. So like it's whenever I take time away from my work, right, I have to calculate in my head. I have to calculate, okay, what's the chances that I can get fired? What's the chances I can? What if I'm bad at my job because I'm focusing too much on activism? Activism is not my livelihood. I have to do it on a voluntary basis
Yeah,
most of
yeah,
the time.
right, yeah,
Yeah, so it's always trying to work that out. So these are the costs that that you don't see in the post, but it's happening in my life. And my partner knows it very well because I always talk to him about it and he tries to like reassure me.
right,
So yeah,
right.
it's all these things. Recently I was part of an initiative like doing a website. When it comes out then I'll post about it. So now it's hush
Nice,
hush. But it's
nice, nice.
that was the first time I ever received payment for my work and I was like, it's weird. Yeah, I
Felt
never
good,
thought
right?
that
It felt very good, right?
yeah, it was like I actually get paid to do this stuff. I didn't know this was possible. Like, yeah, it was, oh wow. It was something new. It was like something I just never experienced before. I never thought I would be like given an opportunity to create and be paid for
Right,
my
right,
labor.
right, right,
Yeah, I
right.
always thought like I'll never be paid. So like it's just try and do the work. So yeah, it's these kind of things when you're not being paid for something and then does it take away your time and effort for things you're
Definitely.
actually being paid for? Yeah,
Yeah.
so some people like they don't really get that you have to work it out on your own.
How has the reception been to like your initiative, and like what perhaps what was it like before when you first started, and what is it like now?
When I first started, like before I even started it, I approached Action for AIDS to like, hey, do you want to collab on this? Because they're the organization for HIV, but then they never got back to me. So I was like, okay, so I'll do it on my own and see what happens. So like the beginnings of UequalsU was more like trepidation because I didn't know how the organization would receive it. And actually, when they did find out about me, they were a bit reluctant. Like, who are you? Who is this woman? Yeah, there were even some misunderstandings that they thought I was from Germany. No, I'm from Singapore.
Hmm.
My partner is German.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, I think there's a skepticism and there's a lack of trust at times. Even the Singapore advocacy activist scene. So that in itself didn't feel great. Otherwise, I have received good support from people. I met some people who were like, they were really like amazed with like what was happening. And some people living with HIV, a lot of them weren't living with HIV, and they were just like, "Oh, thank you for this information." And then they went to research on their own, which I thought was fantastic. So it's been like a roller coaster. I think I've been more harmed by my expectations of myself But otherwise, the reception has been pretty good. Of course, you have naysayers, but like, you know what? It's all right. There will be people, even in Germany, where they have education campaigns by the government, there are naysayers. So, like, they exist. I'm not going to cater to them. I'm catering to those who are unsure but could, tip them over to the other side.
Right.
Yeah, so otherwise the reception has been all right. My parents have been worried. Like my dad in particular, he was like, "What is this allowed? The MOH never published. Are you sure you're allowed to publish, girl?" And then like, yeah, like total fear of the government. Yeah, it's allowed, but it's really like I'll put the link in the post. And then he was like, okay, be careful. Like that's how they say, be careful. But otherwise, it's been all right. Of course, lose some people, but I gained a lot of other friends.
Right.
Of people who are supportive of the work, who even share it from the beginning. And that's always, I have to remind myself, good. Like the information is getting out there. It's just it just takes a while. It's been like 2 years already,
Right. Yeah.
or going to 8 years, and yeah, it's pretty decent, like pretty decent effort. And I just have to make it sustainable. So I have to be careful with myself so that I don't stop one point and just give up. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if you feel the same. Like you have to pace yourself to.
I think because you see, like it is very difficult for me to separate like the activism aspect from like my own personal life, because even the work that I do professionally revolves around that topic. So it is something that I just learned to perhaps not think so much about, because the more I try and think about it, the more I try to find the balance. It just never comes. And along the way, it doesn't help that along the way we face certain issues, like we face like you were saying, like you were thinking about will I get fired from my job, or things like that.
Yeah.
For me, I'm always thinking that you see, there is this logic that the humanitarian organizations out there apply, which is if this person is being an activist for free, why should we pay him? You know, that kind of thing. And this, this creates a very unhealthy inclusion of a certain demographic of creators who may not be passionate about the topic. They only do it because they are able to sell certain products of theirs, or they are able to push their own personal agendas here. See, I would love for an organization to put out a scientist, to boost a post of a scientist talking about HIV. I would love it if a sociologist is the one that is speaking about certain migrant worker issues, or certain socio-political issues that is prevalent within our society. I do not understand the point of having a known name, and this not just includes like our Singapore talents. This is like a global phenomenon. We sort of put celebrities to such a pedestal that we kind of like unfortunately undermine the real people who are actually doing the real work, the scientists, the doctors, the sociologists, the psychologists, heck, even the research assistants. Like they are all doing the real work. And then you have just somebody who comes on camera and says a script.
I think like you have star power. At the same time, like what I'm trying to do is, that's why I read academic articles, so I can I can cite these authors and present their conversations in like a more accessible way. So I always think that we have to marry, the emotional human aspect with like the research part, and just find a harmony with it. But this takes time. This is not like a smooth thing. It can't be done in a day. It takes days.
Right.
Yeah, but it's the kind of thing that requires labor, but it's something that I like to read when I see research paired with human stories. Like I like it, it is concrete for me to grasp. And because I am in research work, it makes a difference. It sticks in the mind. And yeah, I agree with you that we put too much emphasis on star power at times. It's also important to acknowledge the researchers, the people who are working day to day, the social workers, for example. Yeah. But at the same time, I recognize that they may not be comfortable being in the limelight, or they might not have that. They may also like not agree with activists. You see, so it's like, how do you have these conversations? And that's something that you don't really see. I don't see conversations.
Yeah.
They may be happening. I'm just not part of it, But it's just something that I think we have to be more open about and like go through it, lah. Yeah, like some things people take for granted. Yeah, some people take for granted that you're supposed to know, but you don't know what it is. Like some people take for granted that you're supposed to go on an interview and you know what to say.
Right.
But like no, like who teaches you to have an interview? Who tells you, like, it's like you take it for granted, but sometimes people need to know, like, actually you can say no, you can say this, and yeah, it's something we take for granted, like, that this scientific research, but we don't really. I feel like we're not interviewing, or like we're not including many people, or we are there in like very separate spheres. There's no interaction, not enough interaction between, like, for example, activist advocates and the scientific community.
Right.
When you hold them so separate, I feel it's a bit counterproductive.
Right. Yeah. Actually, I do agree with that, because when you're an activist, you're an activist at the end of the day. Like there's no like trying to differentiate, unless of course like say for example, like for you Nurafika, like you all have a separate life, and you all need to do certain things outside UequalsU, but then there are those few as well who dedicate their entire time into this. It doesn't mean that the two of y'all are different. It just means that you have other
different
things to do.
circumstances. Yeah, just different circumstances. Like I can't be a full-time activist. I very frankly, I can't sell my labor very well, and I'm not even at the point where I can even sell my labor. I just don't have the knowledge or experience to sell my labor as such. Yeah, and same for Nurfika. She doesn't want to be an activist only. She also wants to be an engineer. So it's, you have to balance a lot of stuff, and I don't think one is more deserving than the other. I just think we have different life circumstances.
Have you?
I will always have to work. Yeah.
Sorry, you were saying?
Yeah, just different life circumstances. Yeah. So that's the thing. When you reach out for star power, like a lot of times it doesn't turn up anything. I feel.
Right.
I also don't know who the hell to approach. So yeah. I very frank. I don't follow influencers. Nurfika also like she like her Korean drama and stuff, but she doesn't know. She doesn't feel comfortable approaching anyone. I also feel uncomfortable. Furthermore, like I understand that they would like to get paid. I got no money, so yeah, which I understand. It's fine that they would like to get paid. Can't pay them, so it severely limits what is possible.
Right. I mean that's fair because I was asking the question like based on the notion that do you think that this could be like more it could bring more awareness or anything like that, like by
yeah, definitely, certainly, like people who have like how many is like hundreds of thousands or just thousands of followers, like it really could generate impact, but like it's like so, but how do you engage them? And furthermore, when you bring attention to a topic, how do you ensure the fallout is not severe or harmful to someone who is living with HIV? Because now you're going to be debating their status, their lives, and these debates can be very painful. So you can't really measure what happens, the consequences of bringing these topics out. So yeah, it will definitely have reached. No doubt it will have reached to people I have no contact with, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Right.
yeah, people who are in totally different like stratospheres of like
Right.
interest groups. I'm not reaching them, honestly.
Right.
I know
Right.
I'm not reaching them. So
Right.
it's definitely it could make a difference, but also it entails some consequences that I won't predict. Like I can be
Right.
positive or optimistic that people will learn and then maybe it changes the attitude. But what if they just double down on being assholes or like being terrible? So it happens, Like for example, race has been a topic in the media very prominently the past few years. I've seen more in the past year than I've seen my whole other 20 plus years of
Yep.
life.
Yep.
But with that, you also find really ignorant people coming with their own opinions of what race discussion should be,
Mm.
especially from the majority race. So
Mm.
you see, when you discuss something, I really can't predict what will happen. And also maybe there's more safety in slowly reaching people versus one shot hit reach. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Especially when you use the topic of race as an example. You're right. You're right. Not just you, me, all the way from primary school all the way up to I mean, even way before that, maybe nursery, kindergarten, up until now, probably over the past 2 or 3 years, that is when I start hearing more conversation about race and you see, like even initiatives like yours or initiatives that revolve around race and stuff like that. Like I do admit to being slightly ignorant towards such initiatives in the past because like
Yeah, same. Same.
yeah, I
Yeah.
used to ask myself like what is the point of this?
Yeah.
I think this whole question first and understand later thing versus like understanding first and then to grow your knowledge
Come up.
question
Yeah.
more like
Yeah.
it can be counterproductive, and I do blame to a certain extent. I think you mentioned sex education way early into our conversation. I do blame this on our education system to a certain extent as well. That
Yeah.
we have been so like take me for example. I never went through a conventional tertiary education, and still I have that judgment thingy like, hey, what are these two girls doing lah? What is the point? Like
Yeah, I
it's
think we have a lot of pessimism. We're made
yeah,
to believe that and individuals it makes no difference what we do.
yeah,
Because we're just a cog in the machine of
right,
Singapore, like this
yeah,
tiny little piece. Definitely, yeah, it's endemic in the education system. Like you're just this immaterial piece in the whole system. So who are
yeah.
you?
And it's a
Right?
very
And then when you see other people doing stuff, you question what's the point? Yeah. I understand. I had this as well. Yeah.
yeah, and it's a very Singaporean thing. I realized that is very
Oh
uncommon
yeah. Oh
because
yeah.
block out so much. See, everything gets blamed on Western culture, Western culture, Western culture. Then where the hell did your Section 377A come from in the first place? That means you yourself also, following Western culture at the end of the day, what? Because it came from them, what? So, like this whole thing about like always blaming Western culture or just looking at two people or this one person or this group of few people trying to do good and then you judge them or like say that why or rather what do they think they are going to achieve or things like that. Like I think
Yeah.
this is a very Singaporean thing that I of course doesn't feel nice speaking about fellow Singaporeans that way lah, but like this is really a very Singaporean thing that affects the activism scene, and especially something as that hasn't been discussed as much, like HIV, for example. It can be quite dangerous to like undermine people initiatives like yours who are trying to bring in this a bundle of knowledge.
I mean, way before UequalsU existed, Action for AIDS was around. They have been doing the work. I think they're just not very good at marketing themselves. Because
Right.
when you look on the website, you see a treasure trove of information, of knowledge. They actually have research on it. They've been part of research, a lot of research initiatives. And that's the thing, there's a separation. They haven't been able to, or they don't have time or people who can kind of sell what they've been doing or like bring it to other people's attention. I don't know if also there are constraints because they receive government funding or whatever. Like they have extra scrutiny for being an NGO.
Right.
So it's not just me. I think a lot of people are working on it, but we, as I mentioned before, we're working separately because we don't know how to marry our interests and our goals together.
Right. And so, Caitlin, like, you have plans, you are going to move to Germany, and Nurafika is, she has her things going on for her as well. Like,
Yeah.
how are you all going to work together, like in the future? How is this going to
It's totally fine. I mean, like just with my relationship with Marcel, long distance, we have
okay, very good.
internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have internet. We can communicate. Actually, now
Right.
Nurfika and I can't meet each other so much because of the CB measures and fear of getting COVID. So actually, when we talk, like most of the time, our friendship is already over text and stuff.
Mm.
Like we reply each other and we like send stuff to each other. It's really easy to do. It's not too hard, and we will just continue that dynamic. Yeah,
Right.
I think because I'm pretty good at replying people. I'm pretty quick with it.
Yeah, actually, you are. I realize
Yeah.
all the people who run initiatives, like the one person who always, and informative as well, relating back to the conversation we had about that situation with the law enforcement officer and things like that. Like, I feel that is very, very important because maintaining that, like, of course, this is not everyone lah. Not everyone like doesn't reply on purpose or things like that. I feel like that what you do is also another form of discourse that is taking place. That you were able to make a guy in his mid-30s understand why a young female felt that was wrong. And like I went into that conversation thinking that this is not wrong. It's just there are avenues for her to turn to. So she, instead of like crying about it, she should go and explore those avenues. A typical
Male
guy
response.
response,
Yeah.
male masculine type of response where it's
Yeah.
to follow this way and that way, and you were able to change my perspective to a large extent by like talking to me and giving me that much needed attention to like just put it in I don't even know if that was the right thing to use, but you gave me the like much needed attention to like understand that okay, you need to look at it from this perspective, because you were just on and on and on, like telling me like, no, you have to look at it from this angle, you have to look at it from that angle, you have to you send me links and stuff like that to read through. Like I felt that was fantastic. I felt that is what activists should be doing. We shouldn't be waiting for like our national newspapers to come and interview us, then we unload all these things. We should all be speaking to each other. We should all be working with each other. We should all be speaking to people who contact us as well.
Yeah. You also caught me on a good day lah. I had the energy on that day to send you links.
One long compliment.
Yeah. You caught me on a good day as well. Like some things are luck based, You also caught me on a good day that I was, and I knew that you are interested in making society better, and like I can trust that whatever I give, whatever labor I give, it contributes to something. So I'm very glad. Like it made a difference. I'm happy.
Yeah, it definitely.
I think the trouble is that sometimes we don't know whether we can trust people. Like I can give you all this labor, but at the end of the day, do I really trust that you will take it? And sadly, very often I have had similar conversations with other men, never amounted to shit.
Right.
So I'm glad. And this one
pictures of yourself.
Yeah, or like they just said, like, oh no, this is wrong. Then they will challenge me, cite me your source. Like I have some of these male friends, cite me your source. I'm like,
I hate
why
that.
must I do the work for you? Like, yeah, so it's like, so sometimes I have energy, but I also have to believe the other person is going to care about the energy. So I had that feeling that when I tried to educate you, that I felt it could go somewhere. So hence, yeah, I'm gonna put in this effort. But like, imagine you were just a stranger who I just DM, then I'll be like, how much energy can I give this person? Does it amount to anything? Because I've been burned before, right? So this is the trouble. It's
Right.
how, yeah. So fortunately, like I believe in you, and also I was in a good mood to engage.
Great.
Sometimes you need that luck, the luck aspect of talking.
Very, very, very interesting because you appear to be so so goddamn honest. I was not expecting this this conversation and how it went so far, because maybe it was because we always texted and never really spoke in person before or over the phone before.
Yeah, yeah.
But like it's very interesting to see how unapologetically honest you are, and I think that is a very very important thing to have in this space, right? Because you got to have that as your vulnerability becomes your shield as well. Like
Yeah,
you
definitely, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, it's and I'm quite frankly like I'm becoming this way because I focus less on being perfectionist also,
Mm,
like
mm,
or putting on a certain front, and like come on, like I tell people that me and my partner have unprotected, like no sex without a condom. So like you
mm,
kind of have to be honest about certain things as you go along.
right.
Yeah, and just be, as you said, like just be unapologetic, just own your stuff. And like I'm also, the benefit of counseling has helped me to come into this space where I
Right.
just put it out there. Yeah.
Mm. So, final question, which is the boring one, the generic one. Where, where do you see this going? Where do you see your initiative, or rather, where and what do you see it becoming?
No end lah, honestly. I don't imagine an end. I imagine periods of breaks in between.
Mm,
I guess one day I would, because my parents are getting old, and I would like to come back. So one day I would like to just come back to Singapore with my husband,
mm,
and he'd be okay coming here. We have the ability to move here and not be scared about his medication and residency.
right.
I would like that. I also, as a whole for society, I want to see more people discovering UequalsU, challenging themselves. I would love it if we have a campaign, even like in a hospital or clinic, we work with them or something. I would love it. So I
Mm,
would love to see like my actions online translate into physical space.
right.
Yeah, and I've kind of had a taste of it. I am working on a few initiatives, but the other side is also very busy, so it takes a while to come to fruition. But I hope to just keep engaging with people beyond online stuff and work on something we can produce together.
Mm.
So I see as I'm going to be doing this for a long time, and as long as there'll be discriminatory laws or stigmatizing people, then the work continues.
Yeah, that's a very
I just
interesting
hope,
way to put it.
yeah, it's like as long as I can reach more people slowly over time, then I think the work keeps going on its own. Even when I go overseas to Germany, I won't stop lah. And yeah, just try and like engage people, talk to people, have trust that my efforts are not wasted.
Right, right. No, it definitely hasn't. As someone who has followed you all for I think
So since
since
the beginning, I
yeah
think since the beginning, yeah.
since the beginning, I followed y'all so diligently, like every post that y'all put up, like I'm reading it, and like I said sometimes
Oh, thank
questioning
you.
the damn thing, and I'm like, what, why? Thank you so much for
Oh,
really really having this weirdly honest conversation. Like I was not expecting this at all. Like I was expecting maybe a very Okay, I should shut up. Very good. Thank you for the honesty.
I think also like thanks for having me, like even wanting to speak about this issue, and just like whoever hears it hears it.